Hello, everybody. Good morning. So today I will talk about chapter 9, and this chapter 9 is about brain jelly and construction of a humanoid avatar. So this is the final chapter for the scientific discussion, because chapter 10 is about conclusion and how philosophically you can apply our technologies for your daily life, and building new technologies and what new technologies could come based on the scientific topics described in from chapter 2 to chapter 9, and that is described in chapter 10. So basically chapter 1 is the introduction. It just gives you random ideas, new ideas, and then how that ideas look like and different from the old ideas, and then many of the old ideas, so those things are there. And chapter 10 will be uh, mm, uh, now that we have learned all these things, where to go forward and how to commercialize the technologies that we have described in from chapter 2 to chapter 9. So for chapter 9, we have an extensive material science using which we build brain jelly, and with brain jelly we build an artificial humanoid bot and put the brain jelly in its brain and then operate it like a human brain. So that product we built first, and then we submitted the book for publishing. So in 2010, when I signed the agreement to write the Nanobrain book, then that time I decided that if I am not able to build an artificial brain completely, I will not publish a book. It will not be a dream, but after realization of certain things concretely, specifically. So if you have the book, then open it up, and I will describe figure by figure. And if you have the figure, only then you can unearth what I'm talking about. So figure 9.1 is a chart. You can see it's a wheel-like chart where the basic concepts and what are the ingredients for a brain jelly, for constructing a brain jelly, and what are the pathways of development of building an humanoid avatar is described here. So you start with a fourth circuit element, and the fourth circuit element I described in chapter 8. So it's the device where you store charge in a different topology. So like triangle, square, cube, pentagon, hexagon, all different kind of charge centers are packed with different topologies and geometries on the surface. So the charge density could be manipulated wirelessly, applying some kind of energy, electrical, mechanical, or any form of energy. It doesn't matter what form of energy, but you change the distribution of charge. And what happens is, because of the distribution of the charge electric field or electromagnetic field, when it comes in, it rotates. Electric field gets rotates, and magnetic field comes out, and they produce vortices. Electric field might also produce vortices, because in all the experiments we found that along with the magnetic vortices, the magnetic rings, the electric field rings are also produced. So these rings are like artificial atoms. You can bring them together mm, um, to build an architecture of this artificial atoms, supramolecular structures, molecular differences made of artificial atoms. And so the brain jelly is a material designed that absorbs information in terms of geometric language. So all the events that are happening in the universe, you convert it in terms of 15 geometric cells, feed it to it. The gel grows like the phase prime metric grows in chapter 3, and then it follows the mechanics and then the geometric algebra described in chapter 4. And then that brain jelly uses alpha helices that's described in chapter 8. And that brain jelly, when you pump, and then it generates the time crystal architecture of the whole information content. And also, if you expand it, how would it look like? And so basically, like, 12 different kind of systems are all naturally created in the jelly, and it sends up and then gets back. But brain jelly, at this instant, the research is only limited to a computing system. It's not a conscious machine. And why have not we built a conscious machine? Because since we have understood how the consciousness works. The reason is that the first, let's have the computer, incredibly powerful computer, much more than you could imagine to do with a quantum computer. Let it come to market, because whatever we have done, we want to consolidate it, and then we want to consolidate the science that is there. Small, simple technologies, simple tools. I want people to know. So four circuit element, now we know, store charge and then generate magnetic and electrical vortices. So four circuit element, inductor, not memoristor. Inductor is a special kind of four circuit element that synthesizes artificial molecules and then artificial supramolecular structures made of field. Mm, But for that, we need also to synthesize some material. So that will naturally synthesize, and then you would be able to create. So basically, in normal computer, what you do is, in normal computer, um, you have a circuit, and that is a universal circuit, and then you you pump some system, you program how to solve the problem, step by step instructions, so you know the how to solve the problem beforehand, and then it goes there. In case of brain jelly, or this the new kind of computer that we are seeing, for when the new problem comes, the for a very particular class of problem, a very particular kind of jelly needs to be prepared. So it is little different than the normal computer. So basically, if the grammar is totally different, we have no idea about the information content, then it creates a special phase pi metric equivalent, or the temple architecture that you have seen at the front page of the book. That kind of architecture it creates in term using the molecules. So how is that? I don't understand. Organic jelly and the temple-like architecture, I have told it many times, I repeat once again. So what happens is, you have a four circular element, they come together, they vibrate like a time crystal, architecture of time. So four dimensions are exclusively kept for the brain jelly. So brain jelly produces time crystal architectures. So time crystal architecture means clock, many different dimensions. So four dimensions are kept for that, and then finally four dimensions are kept for primes. So that means when when the geometric oscillations whose singularity points are the corners of a geometric shapes, those kind of geometric architectures, they change in terms of prime. So space time topology prime. So these are the kind of metric that continuously being created by by the brain jelly, and that is the way of computing. So suppose you create one jelly, the of course all related problems, many millions and millions of new kind of problems that has topological similarity with this kind of phase prime metric will automatically be solved. You don't need to do anything, but if you want to do anything, you need to make another kind of brain jelly. That's why we have different pockets, 47 different regions in our brain, which are exclusively different in the cortex region. It's called Brodmann's region. So organic synthesis of nanobots, different kind of bots, which actually bring together and then reorient and fix the four circuit element in different arrangement, because that is important. So that is the second step. Then 5D printing of self-assembly of polymer, 3D printing of brain cavities. So if you want to make an artificial brain, you need to 3D print all the cavities. So we have a big 3D printer in the other room. The avatar is also other room, but the video I am attaching with every single tutorial, because that's the thing you need. Because if I have not built a new generation of computer that can outperform and that doesn't use any single line of code, unlike quantum computer, I cannot go for claiming these things, because you can't imagine whatever we have presented in this book so far. We are at the last tutorial where you learn brain jelly. We have done experiment for every single claim that we have made in this book. Yes, because of lack of time, several of the minor or detailed claims we have not published. We have published only the big claims, big pockets, and patented the big things, because we wanted to finish it, but it will come. So on the fifth point is build nanosensors. So apart from 3D printing the brain cavities, which should be soft, so that they can change their conformation significantly, we build nanosensors. So sensors are very important because you saw in chapter 2 that whenever information enters inside the brain, it automatically brings 12 dimension data. That we also saw in chapter 7 when I was describing the brain, that when the data comes to the sensor, 4D dynamics integration, 4D level of integration, but 12D data that is. And then when it goes to the midbrain, then 8D octonian based integration of information, but 12D data. And then finally it goes to the higher brain, then a 12 dimensional integration and 12 dimensional data. A 12 dimension means, what is dimension? Dimension I have explained in chapter 2 tutorial. You can go for details. So dimension is, suppose you have one person is moving in an X direction. You can go to Y direction and they will not be interacting with each other. So it's orthogonal to each other or perpendicular to each other. And then another axis is perpendicular. But 12 dimensions, so 12 different dynamics, one independent of each other, could be played when you have universe inside and universe inside and universe inside and universe inside and universe. So I, j, k, I square equal to -1, j square equal to -1, k square equal to -1, dot, 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 dot. But we represent it to the age because Dorican algebra was not invented. We invented it for the first time as described in chapter 4. So, so we built a new kind of sensors. And then what we do is modulation of vortex noise during vibration, magnetic vortices, map time crystal supermolecule, and phase prime metric, as I said, that that you let the vibrations continue, and then when any video or image changing with as a function of time is fade, then the in the image, suppose a cheetah is there and its leg is moving periodically. So periodic changes of cheetah is converted as a field distribution with an antenna to an organic molecule in a chemical beaker, and then in the gel, that kind of loop is formed. That loop forms a very particular kind of helix. That's the kind of four-circuit element. So different layers of four-circuit elements are constructed to absorb the dynamics. So brain jelly is a sensor of periodic events or nearly periodic events of many different temporal dimensions in a video or any other image file. So basically, if you have a big data, you convert it into image. You let the antennas all around the chemical beaker. So there is a chemical beaker and you have antenna all around, and then you let the gel to synthesize different kind of structures. So using GML and PPM, you even build the memory part. So some part of the PPM is kind of very fundamental. You don't need to build it many times, and you don't need to edit it also many times. So octonian sensor integration, dodecanion integration, self-healing testing, brain jelly, and finally avatar. So avatar means we take cortical columns, we take a capillary glass tube, put it, and then many hundreds and thousands of 200,000 are there, cortical columns in the brain. So we divide it into 47 different regions. So we also did it for our artificial brain. We put cortical columns, tubes all around the brain, and then we built it. We check the EEG and other properties. So that is the kind of a final prototype of the brain. But in the last 12 years, we created many tiny brains made of brain jelly. So basically, if you go to figure 9.2, 9.2, you will find that there are 17 different components: protein, microtubule, neuron, cortical column, nucleus. Then you go to cranial nerve system, the whole network in the body, spinal nerve, spinal cord that we have, connectome, the branches we have in the left and right brain, and cortex top layer, 47 regions, basal ganglia, brain stem, thalamus, hippocampus, cerebellum, hypothalamus, limbic system, and blood vessels. So basically, all this is a chart actually. We got figure 9.2, and here what are the primes that is used primarily in the brain that we have got from chapter 7. So column 3 is from chapter 7, and then how do we create with what polymeric material we have done it. So we have been publishing papers related to the materials construction for the last 6-7 years, and then what interesting is column number 5. So what you see is here, protein is realized by protomorphic device. Microtubule is realized by tubulomorphic device. Neuron is realized by neuromorphic device. Neuromorphic device you have heard many, many times, but what you have not heard is other 16 terms. So those 16 terms are new for you. As we have said that we do not think the neuron skin is doing everything. Neuron skin is only one of the 17 different kind of devices that we have identified that we need to replicate in order to build the artificial brain as we have built the model in chapter 7. So in the chapter 7 we have described on artificial brain model. If we want to replicate it in the entire time crystal architecture that was fundamental of, and that includes all the key organs of the brain to generate 20 conscious behaviors. So we need to generate those 20 conscious behaviors. We need 17 different components that will be integrating with each other, and each of them will be made of brain jelly. So there will be 17 different kind of brain jellies will be there, and for particular purpose work. And then each brain jelly is classified as protomorphic, tubulomorphic, neuromorphic, corticomorphic. The nucleus is replicated by nucleomorphic. Cranial nerve is replicated using craniomorphic devices. Spinal nerve, 31 pairs of spinal nerves, which is prime, by the way, is replicated by spinomorphic devices. Connectome is replicated by connectomorphic devices. Cortex top layer is 47 Brodmann's region is actually divided into 47 different regions, and that will be like cortexomorphic, then basal ganglia, basalomorphic, then stemomorphic, thalamus, thalomorphic, hippocampus, hippomorphic, cerebellum, cerebellomorphic, hypothalamus, hypomorphic, then limbic system, limbomorphic, and blood vessels. It gives blood vessel is very important. People don't accept it in the brain model ever. It just creates a heartbeat like mechanical vibrations, but the thrust is so much that from energy consideration we can. So we have considered mechanomorphic devices. These are the 17 different devices that we supposed to replicate, and we have listed what kind of H3 is used here. Word H3 means in the inductor chapter or the chapter 8, I have described that 4 circuit element to be used as the key device. Like all switch 0101 flipping is used in the normal computer, but here you have to use H3 for conscious machine. Why H3? Why not H1? H1 is the elementary 4 circuit element that is there. That is the 3 concentric layers of cylinders with a spiral arrangement in all the 3 layers. But H3 is you take one of them and then arrange it in hexagonal close packing or spiral or vortex arrangement, and then you take one of that and again. So 3 times when you go, then you reach triplet of triplet bands, and triplet of triplet bands, or doublet of triplet, triplet of doublet, doublet of doublet. These kind of things are necessary to primarily begin the construction of a conscious machine. So it's a completely different kind of engineering that you have never seen before, or never heard before, or never hear even a discussion like this, because we have to create phase prime metric. A prime number of components or cavities will be there in the brain, as we have described in chapter 7, but at the same time we will fill those cavities with this protomorphic, tubulomorphic, neuromorphic, corticomorphic gels. So these kind of organic gels will be there, and each one this is tiny molecular spirals, so it will be the tiny molecular full circle element. They will self-assemble into bigger spiral or bigger vortices. Those vortices will self-assemble into a larger vortices. So basically quantization of the quantization of the electric or magnetic field is essential, so that electric vector you can smoothen out and then process with the magnetic vortices. Magnetic vortices, one of the good thing of processing information is that if you have a water-based structures, water-based device, that your water-based computer, then the magnetic vortices go without dampening, because magnetic vortices doesn't interact with water. But if it is electric field is very, very susceptible or vulnerable to water or any dipole or any kind of charge, any kind of electric field. if there is no magnetic cluster, huge magnetic cluster. Otherwise, magnetic vortices will not be destroyed. And magnetic materials in the brain or in the whole body are very, very specifically located in high concentration at certain region. It's not equally distributed, but electric field absorbing materials are whole body from top to bottom, left to right, every nook and corner you go. So it is much more preferable to go for magnetic beds. And the fourth circuit element is also about storing charge and magnetic vortices. So into the rightmost column is sensor building: eye, touch, taste, ear, smell, proprioception, and time. So all these five kind of sensors, and one, two, three, four, five, six, seven different kind of sensors are there. So basically eight octonian, using an octonian tensor you can control. So this is very simple thing. If you have 7 components, then you need octonian tensor, 8 cross 8, 64, and you have 11 different kind of dimension or dynamics you want to process. Then you need 12 into 12, so duodecanion tensors. But why do you use icosahedron or icosanion? Because duodecanion has 12 different corners. Okay, so but icosahedron has 12 different planes, 20 corners. So if you want to use plane, then planar dimension for explaining the dynamics, then you have to use icosahedron. And if you want to use 12 different singularity layers, world inside another, inside another, inside another, then you have to use duodecanion. So duodecanion tensor and then octonion. That's why in the new papers that is in the press now, will come up soon, we will be using tensors from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 up to 20 cross 20, 400 different 400 tensors. So for every single every single complex number, complex tensor, and that is say 19 cross 19, we have to invent a new algebra. So we have proposed in the paper that how one could invent a new algebra very easily, following our particular recipe. So up to 20 cross 20, more than that is not necessary for the kind of model that we have created. Because if there are more complex situations, we can explain a large proportion of those algebras. We can reproduce those results using up to 2 to 20. So icosahedron algebra is sufficient up to icosahedron. So you have to include the algebra. Just like dodecahedron cannot explain everything. So always in mathematics, science, in the Western science, always we have this particular magic number explains everything. So they have an attitude of doing that. But when you do the Eastern kind of science, the kind of science that we are doing here, then not everything. So the chart of 9.3 actually explains 9.2 actually summarizes all the kind of devices. Now we'll go to 9.3. In 9.3, we explain that to build an artificial brain, we have a sensor-based 9.3a, 12 metric hardware. So basically 12 different kind of independent matrices we will be creating. And figure 9.3b is my favorite. So the magnetic rhythms, electrical rhythms, and mechanical rhythms are integrating with each other with E square plus phi square equal to pi square. So that integration is a must. So you will find many part of the book this quadratic relationship between the three fundamental constants. Three fundamental constants are infinite series are there. So this particular fundamental relationship is known for a long time. I mean, it is not that we have discovered it. So it was known, and many if you even search internet, you will find many literatures describing this. But who first did it, we don't know. But there are many derivations, and people have done it. So why it is important to us? Because biological systems are using their resonance properties to integrate different kind of vibrations. So mechanical rhythm is an expression of life. Magnetic rhythms are expressions of information, and electrical rhythms are actually energy harvesting, and then energy management related information processing is done by electrical rhythm, and magnetic rhythm is purely information decision making. So figure 9.3c is H3 devices for where you see. So sensor jelly, muscle jelly, brain jelly. So suppose you want to build an artificial brain. You can't make artificial brain alone without mechanical rhythms. So mechanical rhythms are there for mechanical sensor, because you need to give, if you want to build a conscious machine, you need to build a proprioception sensor. So if I close my eyes and I can feel all the environment around me and myself. So that is a kind of a proprioception. So there are proper circuits. And if you go to chapter 7 and look at the brain model, then you can find that there are special circuitry in the brain for doing that. We have also built the time crystal for that particular purpose. So figure 9.3c actually tells you where you in the brain, in the real brain, actually you can see this kind of H3 devices. But it is also described in chapter 7, just 2 chapters back, but still we have put it here because you should see figure 9.3 A, B, C, D side by side, because you need the phase pi matrices, 12 matrices you need to create, 12 life forms you need to create. So conscious machine is not just a life form. Life is not consciousness. So life forms has to come together and follow a very particular mathematical relationship so that it can generate 3 infinite series of geometric shapes or phase pi matrices from the composition of phase pi matrices, 12 phase pi matrices to be precise. You can create 3 infinite series of geometric shapes, infinite series, just like Ramanujan. And then that is sent to the top, to the infinity, and from projected to the infinity, and from infinity comes a feedback. So the geometric series, 2 different geometric series, the differences actually comes back. And then 3 geometric series at 3 corners of a triangle, it goes up. And then A, B, they interact and create, say, Q, P, 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 infinite geometric series. And then BC, AB interact and create P, BC interact and create Q, and CA interact and create R. So 3PQR, 3 infinite geometric series are generated. They come back, and when they come back, since it's a topology, they can interact with each other, and that could be fade into the phase pi metric again. So if it is 1 or 2, it will not. But if it is 3, then it's a topology. It will get back into the 12 ppm system, and it will rotate continuously, and that will give rise to consciousness. So consciousness is not a life form, but consciousness is a 12 life form, distinct life forms, or 12 different organs, in this case in the brain organs, where triplet or independent phase pi matrices we detected. So infinite, those 12 and life forms, they come together and then they integrate with each other and generate very particular mathematical properties, which makes the brain conscious. So what happens is a composition of phase pi matrices can project it to infinity, bring it back, and project to infinity and bring it back. A infinite cycle runs. So that is what we call consciousness, and that we want to realize. So figure 9.3D has 7 steps how to build a humanoid avatar. So we have to build humanoid avatar. And the problem with our kind of computing system is that you need to build sensor and all other things from scratch. It's not just that people for neuromorphic devices, they just build a switch or a transistor, and then they claim that whole brain will be built out of it because they consider whole brain as a computer. But here, the inherent thing is the brain is not a computer, because many of the things, as we have explained in chapter 5, in rigorous details, that many of the things you can't. For an example, this fetch pi matrix is projecting to infinity and bringing it back and then take it. So so it will be very difficult. So definitely in a computer you can add 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 up to infinity, and add it, and the addition would return -1 by 12. I know that a computer can do it, but when it will be topological, every time the composition of topologies, when it goes there, a system has to, a new kind of hardware has to be there which can find the topological self-similarity. So and then the difference between different layers, and that will come back, and then local self-similarity or other kind of things you need to check, and it will be very difficult to build an algorithm for this kind of computer, because in one dimension you can write it, but when it is there at multi different dimensions, one inside another, nothing is defined, then the way of interaction that can happen is incredibly large. A triangle could be written in infinite possible way, and a baby can come, and if he is trained, he will say this is a triangle, and it will go like this. Oh, it looks almost like a triangle. So the kind of principle that is there, the topological way of doing it, has one problem, that not the normal computer. You need another computer to, or a conscious machine or conscious like system that can evaluate it, or verify it or predict it. So we come to figure 9.4. 9.4 is kind of my most favorite because so um, artificial magnetic structures in figure 9.4a. So 9.4a, you can see some lattice structures are there, and you will find that refractive index makes a transition. So J.B. Penry in 1999 proposed artificial magnetic structures. So what you do is you store charge in a very different kind of geometries, and then they actually combine together on a plane, because four-circuit element means, on a lattice you will put charge at different pattern, and then different such patterns will come together and collectively generate the supramolecular architecture, artificial supramolecular structure made of artificial atoms, or time crystal architecture, the kind of architecture that you saw when you represented the whole brain as time crystal in chapter 7. So that kind of complex architecture, just like the whole brain is complex, so every single information will be complex. But always remember, those few clocks that you see, they are not limited to that. Those are the seeds. Those are just like seeds of a tree. So when they pass through phase prime metric, they generate an infinite series of geometric sets. So any set of time crystal, if it is triplet or triplet, doublet or triplet, follows a certain geometric shapes. So during the composition of the clock architecture, if you feed it to the ppm, then you get an infinite series. So it is always there. It is just like an absolute truth. Always remember. So how do you realize it? Its nearest equivalent is artificial magnetic structures. Then 9.4b, quantum cloaking. Quantum cloaking is very important. Here DNA molecule is there, and I vanished it with electromagnetic fields. So electromagnetic field you can pump, and quantum tunneling you don't see it. So for the first time in the world we realized quantum cloaking, and when we vanished it, I think that would be the most exciting thing that we could realize. Why it is important? Why should four-circuit element do cloaking? Cloaking is important because suppose I want to talk in millisecond time domain, and I want to talk those whoever randomly distributed all around or talk to each other in millisecond time domain. I want to talk to them. So I would like at millisecond time domain, all other unwanted devices or components are vanished totally, and I can see only them. So what happens? I can send a signal, it will pass through, and it will go to the other one, and whom we desire. So quantum cloaking or cloaking based brain circuits is a fundamental thing for brain jelly. So what we do is 9.4c. So we give helical nanowire, and then different kind of nanobrains and different kind of components, and they form 3D gel matrix. So when we give input as time crystal, and then it goes to the phase prime metric in the jelly, and then we get an output as a time crystal. So we read. So in a computer, you give you analog to digital converter. So all the information is converted into 10101010. It goes to that in the machine algorithm, it processes, and then it comes back 101010, and it's converted from digital to analog, DA converter. So we call it ADTA converter. So that is the interface of normal computer to human. And here also this is this figure 9.4c is actually the whole architecture of the computer, how that be. So time crystal, all the information in nature is converted into time crystal architecture. Time crystal architecture is fed into the organic jelly, where phase prime metric is synthesized. It's exclusive to the class of a problem, and then that generates future predictions, and all kind of time crystals are being generated, and then that comes to me as an output. So then we can read it. And if you look at the signals, they will appear very, very random. But when you put them in a frequencies, shifting frequencies, always remember, when you see the time crystal, as I described in detail many times earlier in chapter 2, chapter 5, repeatedly, that you see the random oscillations, and then look at the shift, where it shifts and where it doesn't. If this one shifts here, this one and this one stops, that means there is a singularity point, because of this clock, and then this clock is shifting like this. It's a periodic motion, so you can draw a circle, and then there is a small peak that is shifting. So for that peak, you put a guest on the host. So I have described it many times in the previous tutorials. So this kind of computer will be created. And mm, figure 9.4D is also my favorite. I love it because one of the property of gel is the healing. So when gel is constructed, a rough H prime metric is created, but more intricate informations you get, different part of the structural symmetry is filled up with much more symmetries inside. So that is kind of learning. So the H prime metric for a very particular kind of learning system that is developed, say social system or something that is developed. It continuously grows. Some part is deleted, some part grows, and then slowly, extremely intricate temple architecture is created. So just like if you have seen how Hindu temples made of stones are created. So you just cut the whole thing into one shape, and then you tiny little cut at different levels, and then slowly the whole shape comes out, just like that. And it takes many temples in India were completed in 80 years, 90 years, or 120 years, something like that, generation after generation. So father started, and then his son, and then his son, and then finally they found that it got finished. Mm. Figure 9.5 5A is in the solvent. You just put the oligomers, and then they grow into different structures. So from monomer to dimer to cyclic to particle to vortex to more and more complex situations. So it's just like an artificial neural network. You saw that you put the gel, and then the gel forms a structure, and you model input and output, what is happening over there. But in brain jelly, that is not the case. So we have put figure 9.5a only to tell you that there is a huge difference compared to the artificial neural network. In artificial neural network, you need to train, you need to find out where it goes. But in phase prime metric based organic gel, we know what kind of vibrations it would give, and how it would be integrating. So there is a general perception of how the symmetries would be and how it will integrate. But of course, depending on a very particular problem, the particular kind of primes or particular set of choices of the phase prime matrices will be dominating in the system. And then there are lots of figures. So we created, these are the earliest version of brain jelly, where we put carbon nanotubes, our special nanobrain molecule that we created. Nanobrain molecule is not described in this book much, because as I said, that on each chapter I will have a separate book where in details things would be there. So this book, Nanobrain, the making of an artificial brain made of a time crystal, the first one in the series, where we give brief summary on 10 different research fields that we developed only to understand how the artificial brain works and how one could build it. And we built one prototype based on that, and all the conclusions are based on experimental facts. So this brain jelly, or number I, 9.5I, you can see that so these kind of gel-like structures are used for cell culture. So use them and put carbon nanotube and try to see that if you have a random assembly of systems, then how does it behave, and how the brain network behaves, how the connections grow. And you can find in H there is a helical pattern, and nanobrain forms supramolecular assemblies in G, and nanobrains with small lifelike forms where you have sensors and you have all other things. Um, so so nanobrain is shown in figure 9.6a. So you have sensors, you have switches, you have all these things, but size is only 10 nanometers. So they come together. They're just like neuroglia. So you need helices and also the neuroglias, the spherical things which integrate information from all over the domain and then spreads all over. And then figure 9.6b, 9.6b is a compilation of uh, 6 different kind of brain jellies. So when you try to build brain jelly, you store information, and then the structure of the morphology of the gel changes significantly. And so your thought process changes the gel, and then how does that look like is shown in figure 9.6b. 9.7 is describing condensation, fractal condensation. So what happens in normal condensation, BC, Bose-Einstein condensation, as you can see in 9.7a, you can see that one wave function is there, and then 2 atoms or 3 atoms or 4 atoms, every atom goes and forms one wave function. But in case of Frolic condensation, Frolic proposed that it is similar to the Bose-Einstein condensation, but what happens is in different energy orbitals are there, because lot of atoms. So Bose-Einstein condensation about few number of atoms, and then one by one atoms pour in to the ground state. But Frolic condensation proposal was that one by one different kind of molecules pour in different orbitals, different higher energy state. So it's a collapse or condensation at a higher energy state, but single energy state. But when we say fractal condensation, in case of fractal number 3, third row of figure 9.7a, then what happens is that different symmetries go engage in different energy orbitals of the whole system of atoms or molecules, and then depending on particular symmetry, this one gets collapsed a little bit, or if these two collapses, then third one gets collapsed, and then simultaneously, if this kind of topology is followed, then other 3 levels, some other molecular systems or others also condense. So this mutually interactive condensation happens. So how do we do it? So brain jelly, whenever we want to operate it, there will be setup will be something like B, 9.7b, where you have electrodes from many different directions, energy is pouring in, and then when you are applying electric field, then each of the participants communicate and then they collapse, as shown in figure 9.7c. So microtubule is forming, and you will see that as a function of applied frequency, you can dominate different kind of modes, and the G 9.7G is the energy level. So energy level is broken, energy band is broken, valence band conduction should be something like this. But in case of topological materials, where on the surface of the material you can store the topology or geometric charges and redistribute the charge in a different way, there what you find is um, um, uh, um, the valence band breaks, and valence band breaks, and the conduction band also break, and they come each other, and they can touch, they can cross without touching, or they can remain a little far. So depending on that, we say the topological metal, topological semiconductor, topological insulator, or something like that. So so that kind of band we expect from the full circuit element like material, and when they grow brain jelly and it grows, so fractal condensation happens at every different layers, and different part of the problem condenses into the symmetry composition of symmetry. For an example, 6 in the chapter 2 you have learned 2 into 3, 3 into 2. So so those who are following C2 symmetry and C3 symmetry, and C3 symmetry and C2 symmetry would come together and then condense simultaneously. Otherwise, you can't create 6 in the phase 5 matrix, or something like that. And figure 9.8. 9.8 is fractal condensation. So you know about reaction kinetics. So reaction kinetics, you know that A plus B, two material come together and makes a product C. So what happens, there is a reaction rate that is determined over there. But what could happen that A plus B goes there, and A plus B plus C is there, and C plus D or A plus D and some other possibilities are there, and they create completely different kind of chemical reactions and two different kind of products, and then they interact with each other depending on this interactions and that results, and that one is fitted, and then two different kind of parallel processes or multiple different kind of parallel processes simultaneously goes on in the same chemical replica. This is one of the fundamental criterion for building brain jelly. So that is called fractal reaction kinetics. It was proposed in 1988 by Koppelman, but he published it in a science magazine. But it was not so generic as we published it in 2014, 2015. That how the chemical reaction should be. So you see figure 9.8e, a beautiful example of triangle, superstructures of triangle, and then 9.8f, where you start with a sphere that forms a double helix, and then you double helix sulfasomals and forms a sphere. That sphere comes together and then forms another double helix, and then that our double helix forms a sphere, and it starts from atomic scale, the molecular scale, a few nanometers, and then when you go on to the visible scale, millimeter and centimeter scale, large scale. So basically, 9.8e and 9.8f actually tells you how brain jelly actually grows from very small scale to the large scale, and how giant phase prime matrices are built. Figure 9.9 A, A, B, C are actually pictures of how an nanobrain actually works. So what happens is nanobrain has some core, and you can see the potential is fluctuating because many switches are there, and they are interacting with each other. So potential fluctuation is there, and that is changing the top surface, and then from top surface the sensors get activated and they come in. So in F, in 9.9f, you will find that there's a snapshot of this video. This video is available in my YouTube channel, so you can enjoy the video. You can see that these materials are exchanging energy and then interacting with each other. So that is the operation of a nanobrain. We come to figure 9.10. So 9th chapter is this, and then 10th figure. And then you will find that dendritic structures are combining with themselves and form superstructures, superstructures. And that's how they follow 9.10J. And you will find that they follow some resonance chain. Resonance chain means when the structure is going from atomic scale to the larger scale, the resonance bands overlap, and then that's how they change energy, exchange energy, and only phase change occurs. So that's how the condition of duodecanian algebra also. If you have a world inside a world inside a world inside a world, then there should be a orthogonal relationship between them, and they will follow duodecanian algebra if 12 layers are there. So basically, we try to synthesize in the last 10-12 years many different kind of systems which have 12 different layers. And 9.11 this whole figure is a beautiful demonstration of brain jelly formation. So you can see that there are electrodes on a spherical structure, and we put the gel materials over there, and then the gel grows. And how the gel grows, you can see the structures over here in C. And if we take the EEG, then we will be able to see the firing pattern or electric field distributions all over the gel spontaneously. So nothing, only spontaneously we'll see that the spherical surface is actually generating electric field distribution all over. So it was the most primitive brain jelly-based brain that we created in 2015. So finally, we find that we have to build now the true computer for commercialization, and that actually begins from 9.12, 9.12. What we do is if we have spirals, I told you that we get a dodecahedron for phase space by length variation, PG variation, diameter variation. I explained that in chapter 8, that you will get phase space is like a dodecahedron where all possible solutions are there. By changing length, pitch, and diameter, you can close some of the holes and open some of the holes. You can do it in astronomically large number of ways. But for each of those conditions, you can create some time crystals. So that is shown in figure 9.12b. that you have a 6, you have 12 and 5, they come together. Actually, in the phase space, how does it look like? And then if you go inside and inside, how the time crystal, corresponding time crystal would look like. And when you pump a laser light to that gel, organic gel, when they come together, all these spirals that you see here are four circuit element inductor, and then they come together, and then they are bonding the phase space. So basically, topology, how topologies are coming together, and then one inside another, and then building higher level topologies are shown in figure 9.12. So this is the first time, first figure in the brain jelly, or first figure in the book and the ninth chapter, where we show you fusion of everything. Geometric musical language, you can find it here. You can find chapter 8, chapter 2, geometric musical language, phase prime metric, because 6 and 5, when they're coming together, they are using the two different kind of symmetry to compose. When multiple different symmetries are used to compose, that means you were trying to build phase prime metric. You remember in phase prime metric in chapter 3, we said that 12 equal to 2 into 6, 6 into 2, 2 into 3 into 2, 3 into 2 into 2, 2 into 2 into 3, 3 into 4, 4 into 3. So 12, all possible ways are there. And then when you find similar kind of structures, when they come together and self-assemble and try to build, that is the synthesis of H prime metric that a brain jelly is supposed to be doing in the solution. But in the chapter 3 also, you saw that if different prime dominates, the H prime metric looks very different. If the composition of prime dominate, then it will be much more different. So infinite number of H prime matrices actually you can create. So in chapter 3, it's a guideline. So, so 9.12 figure is actually is everything here. So H prime metric, four circuit element, geometric musical language, and then how you see the output, you just apply electromagnetic field, you radiate it on the gel, and then the output is green, like this kind of pattern that you were seeing. We can interpret it later. That's what it's this. And figure 9.13 is a table. Table means for each prime, how the time crystal would look like, how the self-assembled structure of four circuit element would look like, and how would they build the phase space, and what would be the optical magnetic output. So basically, in the gel, when they are forming something, from the output, you can actually read what is going on in the gel. So there is a grammar. So there is a table, lookup table, using which you can go and you can read. Okay, so this kind of optical vortex composition is coming. So that means in this. Okay, you are saying this. Also, in chapter 4, we have said that set of circles are doing complex mathematics and all these kind of things. So you can use that one also here to, using this table, you can read the gel and build a commercial computer. While when this self-assembly is happening, then what is going on inside the system entropically? So 9.14 is a summary of Hass's law, HASSE. You can find it in the net. So it starts self-assembling. So you can see it's a very nice geometric shape is there. So 1, 3, 3, 6, 12, 15, 13, 60. So you go on acting like this, and then if you have that number of singularity points on the dodecahedron or icosahedron or octahedron or the fundamental topological geometric shapes, when they combine and create different numbers and then they come together, how if they grow in a very particular fashion, then automatically thermodynamic law is validated. So that has been known for a long period of time. Chemists use this kind of thing. But 9.14b, you can see the divisors are there for each numbers, and those they come together. But when they self-assemble and then they form, the synthesis of H prime metric actually is natural. It's supposed to happen naturally in the system if we follow the thermodynamic laws. So creation of a H prime metric is not something that you need to design in a very interesting manner. If you just allow all the integers to be formed by opening or closing the geometric, the phase singularity points of on the phase space, then automatically this would happen. And that is actually summarized in 9.14c. So that you start with a set of integers, divisors are formed, ordered factors, they come together, and then what that it means that different this a dodecahedron with a different number of holes open and close, they come together, and and when they self-assemble following Huss's law, automatically the phase parameter is created. In one line, we have explained the whole thing, that from unknown integers or numbers or symmetries that is coming from the information to the phase parametric and to the final structural output. That is the solution of the problem. Uh, now, how the commercial devices look like? If I go to market and I want to sell it, 9.15 is just like that. It's beautiful. And so you have a setup where laser comes in, and then you have piezo resonators, and then magnetic pulse generators, 19 gain, and gives 19 input from different video files. It sends the video or images to the organic gel. Organic gel starts forming, and what happens is shown in D, 9.15D, where you can see that slowly the whole phase parametric is grown. And in future, when we will sell it in the market, it will almost look like C, 9.15C, where you will have capsules you can buy maybe from online shops. You can buy those capsules, and then you can put it. Okay, you want to solve weather-related problems? Then this capsule is very good. So advertisement will be like that, and then you buy those capsules, you put it there, and then some generic gel are already created, but more you try to solve it with some other problem, then it will give you very good solution. And how you write 11 to the power 7, 7 to the power 11, and very basic things, and how to read the magnetic vortices are all shown in panel E and F. Okay. Finally, we need to build time crystal for sensors, all kind of sensors, and then those time crystals. Here, when we make a plan, clock inside a clock inside a clock inside a clock, actually this kind of sensor design and synthesis, it has to be meticulous and planned, not like the phase parametric grows naturally, but not the sensors. For the sensors, that is also a phase parametric, but you need to make a close look that 12-dimensional integration, 20-dimensional data is survived, 4-dimensional integration of the data is also survived, and then that goes for building time crystal, transforming it, and filtering and rearrange it. So everything happens in the sensor system itself. Finally, 9.17. In 9.17, we see a chart, and the chart is we have to build now the whole brain. What we'll do, dimensional aspect of brain data. So different 11 dimensional means what is actually happening out there, and then key experiment that we have performed using the brain jelly to understand that one. And then 3D printing files are at the bottom. So we have 3D printed it, and then we create different cavities all over the body, and then nerve fibers we replace by cables and wireless antennas to generate similar kind of frequency space features, just like the brain. 9.18 is actually Pushpendra Singh is working on the skeleton. Finally, he created the avatar. You can find it. So biological neural network and artificial brain jelly are compared here. They are self-explanatory. And we created a chatbot, that you take different concepts like architecture of confusion. So if you have the architecture of confusion, then how do you solve a problem? So we created a chatbot where we do not write different sentences. If you match, you will say like this. If you match, you will say like that. No, of course. If I put millions and billions of lines of this kind of conversations or subroutines, then definitely there will be a match, and sometimes it will run very good, and sometimes it will run very bad. But that is not the way to go. So we found the concepts. So there is just like C2, C3, C5, C7, C11, all these kind of symmetries are there. They are associated with certain concepts. And then when it will try to focus the chatbot, it will always try to find some confusion. And then it will go into some confusion and get into some confusion. And architecture of confusion is the conversation that it will carry out with you at all the time. One example, we asked our chatbot, what do you think of Mahatma Gandhi? The chatbot replied, quite a peace in life, a vegetarian Indian was he. Walk a mile, Karan Das known to many, violence that of humanity, a person to remember. It's quite random. It's not a perfect brain as of yet, but you can find out that it has tried to find key things of humanity, um, and key things for humanity. Not just that, um, what actually made it, what difference did he made as far as the fundamental concerns are there. So based on 47 different symmetries that we are talking about here: C2, C3, C5, C7, C11, C13, C17, C19, C23, C29, C31, C37, C41, 43, C43, and C47. All these kind of symmetries, they have a significance associated with them that we have described earlier in chapter 3. Those kind of associations of the primes, that actually is used in the chatbot to find that these concepts would, you need to find three more concepts like this. Please go and search. So it goes to the Google search and find, okay, so if you see the other side of the truth, other side of the C2 symmetry, other side of the truth, and then you have to go for C3 symmetry. C3 symmetry means three kind of times, that means past, present, and future. So other side of the truth, how it is related, what could be the most confusing thing related to it in there, and then you try to find out some confusion related to that one, and then bring them back, past, present, and future. So 2 into 3, but when 3 into 2 means, say, past, present, and future, what happened to this confusion? And then past, you go to other side of the truth, C2 symmetry, present, other side of the truth, C2 symmetry, future, other side of the truth, other side of the truth. So 2 into 3 and 3 into 2 are very different. So they gives very different kind of results. But when we combine them, we get a certain kind of conversation, certain kind of information structure, or PPM, or phase prime metric we construct. And that one, a summary of that is projected. Projected means geometrically that is projected. And then self-similar similarities or difference between multiple phase prime matrices when sent to projected to infinity, and then we when in goes to infinity means just like a mirror. Okay, and from the mirror you find the differences in geometries and common things, and you build that one and then send it back, and you create a compose a new kind of geometric set, and all the concepts that is related to it, then you compile them into a sentence and you say it. That's how this reply was created in the program. So every time you ask a question, the chatbot would reply like that. We need to perfect it. We need to go a long way to build a conscious prototype. But there will not be millions of lines of sentences written there. You will be happy to know that the sentence is created exclusively for you, and it's not that somebody put some part of the sentences there and then there is a match. Of course, you can fool others by creating huge resources, but fooling is not for what we have written in the book, or I spent my 15 years of my life in building an artificial brain. It was about, even if it is very primitive, it should give a new path, because after me there would always be someone else. So that's the end of this chapter 9, and I know that this is almost the end of the book, because chapter 10 will be the summary and some philosophical concept and what is the future. So it will be an entertaining part. There will be less science and more philosophy and dream that we have with the kind of products and with the kind of other things. So I hope you have enjoyed it. I will come back with chapter 10 tomorrow or day after tomorrow, whenever I get the time. Thank you so much.